So here's the deal. You had a revelation and you understand that you need to buy some life insurance. You understand that life insurance is something that when you die, it pays out cash to your beneficiaries. And maybe you're married, or maybe you're a single mother, or maybe you're a single father, or maybe you just want to make sure that your spouse is taken care of. You understood the need for life insurance. But you go and you find a life insurance company and you're sitting there and you're typing, and all of a sudden it asks you an option. It says, do you want to look into whole life or term life? In this video today, I'm going to be sharing with you when you should buy whole life and when you should buy term life, and stick around for the whole thing because it might not be the answer that you're expecting. Okay, here we go. What type of life insurance you should buy. Before we jump into that, we should probably talk about what the two types of life insurance, whole life and term life, and what they really do. So let's talk about that first. Number one, let's talk about term life. Term life is pretty simple. Term life is something that you can buy in terms. So you might have like a 10-year, a 20-year, and a 30-year, okay? Term policy, meaning when you buy that plan, you're gonna have life insurance for, let's say, if you buy a 30-year term policy and it's the year 2020, you're gonna have life insurance until the year 2050, okay? After that 30th year, that life insurance goes away. That's the simplest definition of term. Yes, there are some terms that can be renewable, and that's not what we're talking about. I'm just talking about, at bare minimum, a 30-year term or a 20-year term policy. When you buy term, you have life insurance for that specific period of time. So people might be asking, like, why would I ever buy term? You're just telling me that I'm gonna lose my life insurance if I buy a 20-year term and I'm planning to live till I'm 90. All right, term insurance is way cheaper than whole life, and like way cheaper. I'm talking like 60-70% cheaper, if not more, than whole life insurance. So the reason why someone might buy term is this. They have 3 kids, they have a mortgage, they maybe have 23 years left on their mortgage for their house. They owe another $200,000 on their house. Well, on top of that, they want to make sure that if something happens to them, their income is replaced and their spouse is okay. So what happens? Well, they buy a term product, maybe a 30-year term policy. And the reason for that is that when they buy a 30-year term policy, they want to make sure that their family is okay during the growing portion of their family's life, while the kids are growing up, while the kids are getting through college, while the family is saving their incomes, things like that. They want to make sure that if something tragic happens to them, that their family will be taken care of because they're not there to take care of them anymore, okay? So that's why someone might buy a term policy. It's a very specific investment that, hey, you know what? I might end up losing $30 a month or $50 a month or $20 a month, whatever it is, whatever your policy costs. I might even lose $100 a month, but I'm willing to pay $50 a month to make sure that if something happens to me in the next 30 years, my family is going to be okay. All right. That's term. That's why somebody would buy term. Okay. Very simple definition. So what is whole life? Why would someone buy whole life, and what is it? All right. So remember how we just talked about term? Or term, you'd have like a 30-year term, and at the end of 30 years, it goes away. Okay. Whole life is good for your whole life. That's how you remember it. And the video's over. No, I was kidding. So whole life it's a permanent coverage. So as long as you pay the bill, that policy will be in force. A lot of whole lives cap off at age 120. So if you live to age 121, then you might be out of luck. But for the average person, whole life, it covers you for your whole life. Rate never changes. So the rate is the same thing for the rest of your life. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, why wouldn't I buy that plan? And you might. But here's the drawback. It is significantly more expensive than term. So whole life would be for potentially someone that says, hey, I want to make sure no matter what happens in my life, I have my funeral paid for. I want to leave a legacy for my kids. And I want to make sure that there's a big lump sum of money, even if I die at 90, if I die at 45. There's also some cash value that can grow within a whole life policy. That's not why you should buy it. You should buy it if you want something permanent. If you want your money to grow, you should invest it. All right. Generally speaking, outside of some rare instances, life insurance should not be used as your main investment vehicle for your money. Okay. That's not what life insurance is for. And if you have people telling you that you should invest your hardworking money into a life insurance policy instead of investing it into a traditional retirement account like a Roth IRA or something like that, yes, you can. There is cash value that grows within the whole life policy, generally maybe at 2 to 4%. Don't hold me to those numbers. That's a really like vague growth, but it does grow some, meaning you can borrow against that for maybe kids college, or if a tragic event happens. There is some cash that does accumulate in a whole life policy, but again, that's not the main reason for buying the plan. It's just kind of a side benefit. I hope by now you have a decent understanding between term life and whole life, all right? What do I recommend? If you ask me what policy do I recommend, and my short answer is, well, it depends. I would say 70 to 80% of the time, I recommend term life insurance. That is what I recommend the majority of the time for the majority of people. Why do I recommend it? Well, it's a lot more affordable. If the person knows why they're buying term life and they have a specific plan in place on why they're buying the term and they understand there's an ending point, it makes sense to save that money and not pay extra to an insurance company, and instead take that money saved and put it into some investments or savings, okay? So that way, after the term goes away, the 30-year drops off, you might not need life insurance anymore because you've saved all that money over the course of 30 years that you would have had to pay into a whole life policy. Well, then who would buy a whole life policy? Generally, the people that would buy a whole life policy, there are two reasons, in my opinion, and again, not everyone's gonna agree with me, but this is my opinion. Number one, sometimes people like to stack their policy. So sometimes people will buy a term life insurance plan and they get like a super small whole life plan to run in the background. So that way, when their term runs out, they still have maybe a $20,000 to $50,000 whole life plan running in the background to cover funeral expenses and things like that in the future. All right, so sometimes that's what people do. They'll buy a cheap whole life plan, maybe around $50,000 in coverage. So that way, when their term drops off, they still have a permanent plan. All right, so that's maybe one person that could look at a whole if they want something small like that to be permanent. Just because, again, you never know in your life. You might think that you're gonna be saving all this money, and when your term runs out, you're gonna have all this money and it's not gonna be a big deal. But then in reality, you maybe had one more kid than you were planning, and then all your kids had braces, and your house broke down, and life gets expensive, and then after the end of 30 years, you don't have anything, and now life insurance is really expensive, right? That's the risk with term. And so some people will wanna maybe alleviate that risk a little bit by buying a cheap whole life policy. The other people that might be a good idea to look into whole life policy is a policy called final expense. Basically, the goal of that policy is for people that are over the age of 50 that are just looking for burial coverage. They're just looking for a $10,000 to $40,000 whole life coverage to make sure that their family won't have to pay for a funeral. Generally, those policies are decently priced, and the medical questions on those policies are super minimal to allow older people to be able to afford those policies. So that's it. All right, I hope this video helped you. If you have any questions whatsoever, please drop it in the comments below. I really enjoy making this type of content. So if there's anything else life insurance related, any questions you have, please put in the comments below. If you disagree with me, please let me know in the comments. Tell me why you disagree with me. I'm curious about that. And one more thing before I let you all go today in this video. If you are shopping for life insurance, and specifically term life insurance, please feel free to go head to my website and you can go get a free life insurance quote on my website today. Literally won't cost you anything to get a quote. Honestly, I meet with people for free as well. So if you want to talk to me or talk to someone on my staff, we will meet with you with no cost. And honestly, I want people to get covered. So please check out the website. The link will be below in the description at englandinsuranceGroup.com. So check that out. And please, if you're still around, like the video, comment. It really helps the YouTube algorithm shoot this to other people. I'd really appreciate that. Thank you, everybody, again. We'll see you guys in the next video.